All right, are y'all ready?
Hold on one second. My computer's being dumb for a minute. All right, let's go ahead and start this shindig.
Yes. All right, so we all agreed to do Title One and how, like, the history of it and some of the ways we use it in our school and challenges that we're going to face as the future administrators of America. So I know we were talking in the last one about the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, or that's kind of where all of this came from, with Lyndon Johnson signing it in what,
1965.
1965. That's right. So really, it was just designed to bring financial aid to all the schools and allow them to have access to local funds, which all the kids in the schools are entitled to.
Yes, absolutely, but it focused on the poverty level or the socioeconomic status of children originally to give them the same opportunities that affluent children and affluent families had.
Right. Thank you for that.
Right.
I thought it was interesting when it started that they even relinquished control to the local education agency. So, like school districts, charter schools, they got a say in what doing with it and how they were going to use that funds, and it just wasn't dictated to them that you will do this and you will do that.
Right. Which is nice, considering that every school has different needs, for sure.
Yes.
I think we were talking some. Oh, go ahead, Matthew.
I was just going to say that it helped close the gap between the high and the low performing students is
Absolutely.
what it's designed for. Yeah.
And it also needs to be noted that in order to get Title I funds, 40% of the children in the school had to come from low-income families to be eligible. If they didn't meet that requirement, they weren't given funds. And so that threshold to meet that 40% is definitely a must for schools needing the money.
Right. And I think because I was reading
districts, and the fact.
Go ahead.
That not every school in the district has to be a Title I school. So you can have, certain populations at certain schools that qualify for Title I, while other areas in the same district are more affluent and they don't qualify for those funds. Right. So the district has to be careful on how those funds are distributed, and they are going to the proper place in the proper schools so that the students are being able to see it.
Right. And I was looking too, just because, we were talking how y'all are in the public school world and I'm in the private school world. And so I did some research on how they are able to determine that. So they look at the census data. They look at the kids that get free and reduced lunch. Like at my school, none of my kids qualify for that. They look at those who are on temporary assistance and then Medicaid. So those are some of the determining factors for how those funds get distributed and where they get the kids that need that money.
Yeah, I found that there was 4 different formulas that were used to calculate how much money and if you would get money. And looking at those, it can be confusing, especially as a new administrator to does your school qualify, and if they qualified in the past, do they continue to qualify?
Right. And I saw too that they do that like every 2 years. They reassess where the kids are in the need.
Yeah, and that's based off of the campus needs assessment that is required if you're receiving Title I funds. That has to be done, and that's the needs assessment is done on a yearly basis.
Right.
And that's something that in the public school sector we have to deal with at the beginning of every year, being sure that our needs assessment's done, and the site team at the school is taking care of all of the information that goes into that.
Mm.
So did both of y'all work at Title I schools?
Well, I work at a Catholic school, and so we have kids. What they do is they will go report to Arlington ISD because that's where my school is, and all the kids that live in, they'll report what their normal public school would have been. And then if their public school gets Title I funds, based on the number of kids that are at our school, we get a part of their money. Does that make sense? So every year at the beginning of the year, our families have to fill out this form that says, this is the school my child would be attending if they were in public school. And then my administrators figure out how much money that would be, and then that will determine how much money we get. So we have to do a lot of work with the people at Arlington ISD in order to get these funds. So where are you, Matthew?
Matthew, to answer your question, my school is completely Title I. We have a majority of our students. It's way over 40% meet the criteria.
Right.
You know, my principal earlier today, we have a little over 90% of our students that qualify for free and reduced lunch, and so that's a giant chunk of the population.
What about at your school, Matthew?
Well, I think we're like 79% economically disadvantaged. It's a 6-man school and really small, and there's a lot of kids, so they're definitely it's Title I. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, like at our school, we have. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. It's kind of lagging. Go ahead. I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, like at our school, our campus has.
Sorry.
But our campus has maybe like 400 kids, and out of all of our kids, like 20 qualify. So we don't have very much of that at all. So when we're looking at Title I, you know, we have a few kids that we service, but for the most part, we don't get a lot of Title I funds. And the funds we do get is for more like tutoring and stuff.
And that's,
you said a while ago.
Go for it, Matthew.
I was just going to say, like you said, we have lots that seem to have. It's a really old school building. I mean, like the high school is, and they have a lot of technology, like you said. I think that comes from that. I mean, like a lot. I think every kid in school has a laptop and stuff like that. They've got TVs in the hall, like for the digital media stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a little bitty small school, but they evidently get lots of money from Title I. So.
Yeah, most of ours is used for tutoring. Like because we have to request, what we need with Arlington ISD, and then they'll send. We have a dyslexia tutor that comes to our campus, and then we have a speech therapist that comes to our campus. So that was when I asked my administrator, I was like, what is your biggest challenge? Like, if you were going to give me the best advice about dealing with Title I, what would you say? And she's like, scheduling everything is a challenge. And then we could talk about the whole, what they help them with and matching curriculum up and everything. But they said, because they're supposed to, according to Title I and on the TEA website, work with the schools to get like what's most convenient for them. So she said one of the hardest things is to try to get that to happen, to make it work with their schedules, because they're so busy dealing with all the other kids they have to deal with on their campuses, that to make, accommodations to come to ours is a bit of a challenge. What were you going to say, Garrett?
No, and you brought up the dyslexia tutor and the other tutors that you have. That, based off of how it was rewritten in 1994 to include at-risk students and not just the low socioeconomic students, that's why those students get those services, even though they might not be low income.
Right.
And at risk, it became a big part starting in 94. Right. And so we still see that today. Currently, my district, with it being STAR season, we're using the Title I funds for tutoring as well. And so that's teachers coming in on Saturdays or before and after school, past contract hours. And, we have to clock in and we have to keep records of the students that attend. And so many of those students have to be at risk or low socioeconomic in order for us to get paid that $20 an hour in order to tutor.
Well, I was saying, I know we're talking about tutoring and whatnot, but I know some of these funds can be used for like teacher professional development.
Yes, absolutely.
So like with our school, since we don't have very many students that do the Title I tutoring and get the funds for that, we do have access as teachers to that kind of stuff, but they require us to like give them 90-day notice for what we're doing. And given that we're a Catholic school, we're not allowed to we're supposed to just do things that further reading, math. We can do social studies and science stuff, but we can't do anything like with the religion stuff, which makes sense. But, we have to have 90-day approval and submit like 4 or 5 different forms about what we're doing. And then we have to give them proof that we actually went before they give our school back the funds for our professional development. Do you guys have that kind of process at your school as far as professional development goes?
Some of that came in a little bit choppy, but
Sorry.
we definitely have a process that we have to go through, on a yearly basis to get the funds, and then the documentation on how the funds are being used, focusing on the reading and the math, and what they consider the high needs areas. Requirements there. Also, you have to have so many highly qualified teachers. You have to have meet a bunch of the other standards in order to get this and use it. And so you have there's not only the paperwork hurdles, but the personnel hurdles as well, especially in a smaller school district. I'm sure, Matthew, where you're at, being a smaller school, there's times where you might have a hard time attracting some of the more highly qualified teachers because of the location.
Actually, it is. We have highly qualified teachers, but that was another thing. We've got like 3 or 4 that are retiree hires, and there's probably only in the high school, probably only maybe 7 together. And so they don't, they pay above, but it's not, too much, not too much above, but they seem to have trouble getting to come there. Yes.
And the reason I bring that up is because with No Child Left Behind, 2001, part of being able to continue to receive funds for Title I, you had to meet adequate yearly progress. And so if you're not meeting the STAR goals, you're not meeting the other goals set forth, then they can technically pull your money, your Title I funds, because they deem that you're not using it appropriately to benefit the students.
Right. I know. I think where I was at before Cross Plains, I think that happened to the high school, but they didn't. Something happened in the elementary. I guess it was probably the free and reduced lunches or something. I'm not sure how it works, but the high school lost their Title I funding because of something to do with that.
Well, it'll be interesting because when we're doing that Every Student Succeeds Act, I wonder how that's going to impact Title I funds and, the accountability for all of that too.
What I pulled when I was doing some research on this is actually the Title I is going to go up. They're projecting that the proposed regulations would mean $2 billion in addition to what they're already receiving. And so continue to put money towards this issue and feel that the money and the regulations that go with it in order to use it are enough to benefit the at-risk students and the students with a low socioeconomic status.
It makes you wonder too if they're going to up the funds for that, how much accountability is going to, like paperwork wise and being accountable for what you're doing, is going to change too. And I mean, there's still, I even went back and looked, there's not a whole lot out there yet about what the ESSA is going to entail. So for you guys, especially who live it, are going to have to kind of be aware of that and those changes that they make for sure.
Excuse me.
That's all right.
The other thing that Title I was trying to do is get parental involvement in the schools.
Yes.
And so that's academic involvement, that is parenting, advice, parenting, assistance. And so they're trying to really make an entire community organization and bring in those parents to better help their students and to better help the school and everyone be successful.
Well, I saw that too, and I don't know, because again, that's not something that my campus utilizes, because our parental involvement is 100%. I was curious when I read that too. What happens on y'all's campus as far as Title I funds being used for that? Do y'all have any idea?
And so, an example of that in my district or my school currently is we also have a lot of ELL students. And so when we send home paperwork on Title I and other things, if it is a requirement for Title I, it has to be in the language that the parents can read. And so a lot of stuff in Spanish and in English. All that paperwork that goes home at the beginning of the year needs to be in both, so the parents understand the rules and regulations and the student code of conduct expectations that are set forth.
And,
right, and
go ahead, Matthew.
I was just going to say that y'all we're talking about parents' involvement. They always have the meetings at the beginning of the year and have whatever parent teacher night, or where they have the parents come up and just with the Title One.
Yeah, it's not just a meet the teacher night. It's a curriculum night to get the parents involved, so the parents know what their students doing, and so it's different than meet. But a lot of it still feeds to the same purpose because you're putting a name to a face. You're getting to see what the students do.
Now, do you guys?
They have them do some like.
Go ahead, Matthew.
They have them do like a little activity. The parents come in and I think.
So, do you guys allow your kids to opt out of Title I funding? Because, like at my school, like we can get whatever. Like, and again, my school is more like the tutoring, the dyslexia specialist. We have the speech therapist that comes in, and we give the parents the opportunity to accept it or to decline it. Is that an option? Do you guys do that at your schools, or is it something like since you're public schools, you just do it and you just get it?
It's not you just do it. You have to have all the paperwork and meet the needs. But it's the administrators and the district personnel are the ones trying to get the Title I funds to supplement some of the others because it's all based off per pupil spending. And so if the per pupil spending is below 36%, it needs to be brought up to the minimum of that 36%, which should be going up according to the Every Student Succeeds Act, but it's not paperwork or read anything that parents can opt out. Now they can opt out of the free and reduced lunch if they don't want that. Right. But at the school receiving money because of the economic status of the students or the marking for the students, I have not been able to find anything on that.
Okay. Matthew, do you think, if anything, as an administrator in the future, that might be problematic or with Title I or concerns you might have with Title I?
Just keeping up with all the paperwork, I mean, keeping up with what you got to do to get it. Seems like
it's also interesting to note that we don't get the Title I funds directly from, the national government. They go to Texas, and then the state of Texas is the one who doles that money out and says, this is how much you get. And I was interested to look at that's posted online, how much every school gets. And they say that this figure is the maximum that they got. And so it's not, the exact numbers are not posted. But, there's schools that range from a few $1,000s all the way up to, hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars.
Yeah, no, I saw that too.
Right. Yep. Is that was that from the U.S. Department of Education? I don't know if that real.
I pulled that from there and from the Texas.
Oh, yeah.
How those dollar figures came together. And it was just something that interested me, tracking where the money went and the fact that, they don't necessarily show the exact same dollar figure. The fact that
I was trying to find that.
Go for it.
See if I had like different figures, but I don't. I just have the one.
The Texas
Department of Education.
Yeah.
I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, I know, I don't know how y'all do it at your school, but I have a principal and a vice principal, and our vice principal is in charge of all that paperwork. That's one whole part of her job. And so I wondered, when we're administrators, and I don't know how it is in the public school world, in our Catholic schools, each school does it their own way. They have one person whose job it is to do all the Title I paperwork. So that way it's through the one person they're interacting with the person from the ISD. That way it's all cohesive. On your campus, Matthew, is there someone specific that does this that you reach out to when you have questions or does all the paperwork for your campus?
The high school principal.
Yeah.
And at my school, it's principal, but a lot of it has to go through the site team, making through the needs assessment, and the principal ends up having to sign off on all of that. And so there's some contributors along the way to the different paperwork, but ultimately it's the principal at the school who's responsible for all of the information.
Right. Yeah, she's got being a small school, they do lots of things. I mean, not just being a principal, but all paperwork and everything.
So you're
and
like,
they have committee.
so it's like you're like at my school then, like
Yeah.
where they wear many hats for sure. Now, when
Yeah.
I asked my administrator about this, the one thing she was like, so that she thought was a challenge was like when these tutors come in to help our students, they bring materials with them, and it's not necessarily things that we're doing like in our school. Like we have some things that we don't, like different books and things we don't read in our school, but they're like bringing these things, and so like what they're teaching them and how they're teaching them might not be what all the other kids are doing, and so we find that they're learning maybe things differently or in a different way than the other students are. So one challenge that I think to consider too is how to balance all of that, like what goes on in the classroom versus what happens when you're tutoring the kids too, to be a challenge.
And since we do most of the tutoring as classroom teachers, we don't run into a whole lot of that because it's the strategies that we found that work. And, not only depending on the student is what really gets done. Some of the ELL students that are, help the school qualify for Title I, we'll use different strategies with them than we will with, some of our, naturalized students that were born and raised here, because it's just proven what works and what doesn't. But that, professional development and, the reform strategies are part of this. And so if someone does find something that works particularly well with, a subgroup of students, they can get grants from Title I to continue to do that and continue to work on that, and develop a strategy that will work across the board.
And I don't know if my school is just different because there's so few kids that get pulled out, that they get pulled out from classroom time and they go to another part of our school and get the tutoring there. And some of our tutoring happens after school. So it could just be our situation is unique versus where you guys have so many students in your school that receive Title I funding that we just handle ours a bit differently.
Yeah, well, there's still intervention.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
You're good.
Amy, you have like 20 kids?
Yeah.
And they pull them out for that?
Yep. They'll come they come at various times during the day, and we'll pull them out. Especially our dyslexia tutor. I mean, that's where most of our kids get pulled for, and she'll pull them out and spend an hour with them 3 times a week. But I mean, she pulls them out of their ELA class or their math class, and they go to our little tutoring room and they work. So, I mean, they miss some instruction time on that end, but that's the way that Arlington ISD has kind of allowed us to utilize that system, and it works. So we just do it. Do they pull them out of your classes, Matthew, or are they incorporated like at Garrett's?
Do you have RTI, Garrett?
Yes, we have RTI. We follow the RTI plans.
Okay.
And we try to pull them out of their elective class. We'll pull them out of their English class. On rare occasions, I'm a math teacher, and they'll get pulled out of my class for dyslexia or another specific tutoring reason. But it's majority of the time we try to do it so that they continue to get their core classwork on track, and that's in the public school sector. That's just a huge thing, especially
like
the standard. It depends on the student and what the art paperwork says for them. It ranges from as little as 15 minutes one time 6 weeks to an hour, 2 or 3 times a week, depending on the need.
Did you really just say 15 minutes every 6 weeks? Like that's someone.
Yes, kids that are exiting and have met their goals.
Okay. Okay.
And so they still need to meet, and they have to do that. But it gets down to that point, and our psychologist that has come in to do some reading tutoring with the kids. As there's a kid that started the year who was showing up every hour and working with her. He met his goal at Christmas time, and he's down, and she shows up once a 6 weeks now, and it's a little bit with this particular student. It's about 30 minutes or so.
Okay.
But it really comes down to the goal that's set forth.
Got it. Well, that makes sense. I guess my kids just have never met their goals, so they're always doing that. So that just struck me as odd when you said that. What were we going to say, Matthew?
I was just laughing. I'm sorry. Just chuckling.
It's different. But we were talking before this we started recording that, it's been interesting since 2007. The title hasn't been reaffirmed until last year, and schools were still receiving money. And so I couldn't imagine being a Title I school who lost Title I if you get so used to that money coming in to help out with tutoring, to help out with, professional development, and then all of a sudden you no longer qualify for that.
Right.
I can see how that could be a major issue. And so
They really count on that. The principals, they really count on that Title I money to be able to do extra things. So
And
that's exactly right, to help the students out, just any little which way possible.
Well, and at my school, especially with dyslexia therapy and speech therapy, our parents rely on it so that they don't have to pay for it out of pocket, because that's part of their, what they should have been getting if they were at the public school rather than coming to our school. So for them, we don't look at it as if we don't have this money, it's not going to kill us because we don't get it anyway. You know what I mean? Because we're not a public school. So it's one of those things that for our parents, it's a big deal. So,
Absolutely. And the fact that, that helps encourage that parental involvement both
Yes.
in the private sector and the public sector,
Yeah.
because, you need the parents there advocating for their child and what's best for them.
Yeah. Well, I will say this whole class has been eye-opening because I know I've said it to Garrett before because, having never really, I taught in the public school for 6 months and then I've been in the private school ever since. And a lot of this stuff, I just had no idea. I knew about it, but I didn't know about it. So I think as administrators for you guys, there's so much on your plate. I totally respect that. And granted, I don't have as much that I deal with, but some of these Title I things and some of these legal issues that she's bringing up, it's just been really eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, all the laws.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And it's not just, state laws, this goes back to a federal law that is, it's assisting, but it's clogging the system in some aspects, and is it really working? That's been one of the questions that every time I go to look up Title I is, there's someone out there saying this doesn't work, and they're doing research to prove that throwing money at students is not just the answer. There needs to be more to it than just, oh, you come from a low socioeconomic household, so here's money. Oh, you're an at-risk student, here's money. And there's a lot of people out there advocating for a different way to go about solving the issue of bringing the lower performing students from the low socioeconomic status up to their peers.
Right. Well, good. Well, I think we're good.
Yep. That's what I was thinking. It's about time.
Yeah. Okay.